Hello everyone, Craig here from Wookie Video, hoping everyone is okay. So today we're diving into what I consider the top horror movies of each decade. Now this challenge has kept me awake for nights and much more than any horror film ever has, to be honest. But how do I choose? I mean, some decades are dripping with classics and masterpieces, but if I had a gun at my head and I had to say one movie from each decade, this is what I would choose. At this moment in time. To take the stress out of it, I've made it easier. I can choose a bronze, a silver and a gold. So this is like the Horror Olympics. Will you agree with me, or will you think I've got it all wrong? Time will tell, and I'm sure you will let me know. So we go from the silent era scares to modern day nightmares. I've covered it all. So there's a lot of ground to cover, so I will keep this relatively brief and choppy. So on that note, let's dive in. I'm starting with the 1920s. My bronze award goes to The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Why? Well, it's weird, surreal and so creepy. My silver award goes to Haxan, which is very disturbing, unsettling and powerful. But my gold award goes to none other than Nosferatu, the granddaddy of all vampire films. This silent gem for me is the masterpiece of silent horror and introduced us to the iconic Orlok, a vampire with a face only a mother could love, and even she would need some convincing. So even without sound, it remains visually striking and unforgettable and considered one of the greatest of German expressionist cinema. Now there's just something about the way that he moves with that jerky camera that sends shivers up my spine. Nosferatu, of course, was the unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which led to a lawsuit and almost wiped out all of the copies. Thank God this didn't happen. There's also been a remake in 1979 with Klaus Kinski playing the bald bloodsucker, and we are awaiting the latest incarnation from Robert Eggers, which is released this year, and I can't wait. So now we are in the 1930s, the era that introduced the American horror movie and the birth of the Hays Code. Now this is a difficult era for me, but I can only choose one, yeah? So my bronze award goes to Freaks. Why? It's bold, unflinching and strangely touching. My silver award goes to Frankenstein. Iconic makeup, iconic set design, iconic performances. But what has just nudged in the lead for me is Todd Browning's Dracula from 1931. Now this film brought the iconic Bela Lugosi in the role of the legendary bloodsucker. His performance was so mesmerising and his look became an instant icon. The film is beautifully shot, even though it's very creaky and a little stagey today, but after all it was based on the successful stage play. Here's a fun fact, did you know that Lugosi was buried in his Dracula cape? Moving on to the 1940s, there wasn't a huge amount of choice, probably due to the Second World War, however there are some gems. My bronze award goes to Cat People. Why? Because it's stylish, innovative and very clever. My silver award goes to Dead of Night, a British anthology film which arguably inspired the popular Amicus films. Stiff upper lipped, but it is still spooky and beautifully shot. My gold award goes to The Wolfman, which further widened the appeal of universal horror. Lon Chaney's fine performance is the stuff of legend. I love this film, the pacing, the set design, that are all equally as iconic as Dracula and Frankenstein, and the transformation scenes were so groundbreaking for its time, so what is there not to love? The 50s. Even though we had the birth of Hammer and American International Pictures, the Cold War anxieties of the 1950s were perfectly explored in movies and the science fiction became super popular. My bronze award goes to The Thing from Another World. Why? Because it's such a cozy watch, even though it takes place deep in the Antarctic. There's just something so comforting about these old movies, lying on a sofa on a dark winter afternoon. You know what I mean, don't you? My silver award goes to Dracula, also known as The Horror of Dracula, which was Hammer's 1958 version, which introduced my favourite, Christopher Lee, as the Count in glorious blood-spurting Technicolor. However, my gold award goes to a film which I've loved since being a kid, and it is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. A film that made everyone question their neighbour. Were they really just watering their lawn, or plotting to replace them with a pod person? It is the perfect movie which reflects the better dead than red era. The pod people didn't just scare the pants off audiences, they also created a new paranoia genre. Trust nobody. So we are now in the 1960s, the turbulent decade of the JFK assassination, the Beatles, flower power and the moon landings. It's also been a really easy decade for me to choose what really stands out to me. So my bronze award goes to Night of the Living Dead. That superb black and white apocalyptic horror that introduced the world to Romero's zombies. It's bleak, smart and bold, with the perfect killer ending. My silver award goes to Rosemary's Baby, Roman Polanski's masterful occult thriller that sees a pregnant Mia Farrow feeling isolated and paranoid in New York's Dakota building. Its fab modern day setting is a perfect time capsule to the late 60s, which gave to the devil movie craze of the 70s. The Gold Award has to go to this next film purely because it is a brilliant horror film that I've seen many times and never get sick of it. It's 1960s Psycho. The celluloid parent of the slasher genre, it is just a masterpiece of brooding suspense, fantastic cinematography, scoring, performances, you name it. I was invested in every single frame of the movie, and I just think it's marvellous and perfectly paced, even today. Did you know that the iconic shower scene used chocolate syrup as blood? The 1970s is probably one of the greatest horror decades in my opinion. Due to the success of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, it proved that you didn't need Hollywood studios to scare the pants off the audiences, and as a result we saw a tirade of independent horror movies that were just amazing. So this is my toughest decade. There are so many films. Can I hand out 3 golds please? Only one? Oh. Okay then. So for the record, before I get mauled by you lot, I've decided to take Jaws out because arguably it's a thriller, even though it does follow some horror movie tropes. But if it wasn't there, Jaws would win every time. But it's not. My bronze award goes to Alien. Ridley Scott's 1979 chestburster that to me is just the perfect horror movie. The special effects are repulsive and groundbreaking, the casting of the isolated crew are perfect, the jump scare, the suspense, the amazing set design and musical score are just outstanding, and it hasn't aged a day. My silver award goes to Halloween, John Carpenter's 1978 cinematic masterpiece. I love everything about Halloween. It is a homage to Psycho, it's got perfect casting, stunning cinematography, and a killer earworm soundtrack that sets it apart. Okay, it's probably no surprise what my Gold Award goes to. It is of course none other than William Friedkin's utterly brilliant occult shocker. For me, nothing can top the experience of The Exorcist. It's probably my greatest horror movie of all time. For me, it is the perfect package, Oscar-nominated performances, an unspeakable horror that takes root in the everyday, a creeping sense of dread that just grows and grows and grows until that brilliant third act. I'm such a fan, I even made a dedicated video to it. 5 reasons why The Exorcist is the greatest, and you can watch it by clicking on the screen now. We are now in the 1980s, the birth of the VCR and the decade where the horror movie franchise kicked in and dominated the video rental shelves. There's endless slashers and B-movies to choose from, but what did I go for? My bronze award goes to An American Werewolf in London. John Landis's perfect blend of comedy and horror that offers irresistible performances and awesome practical special effects that still hold the gold standard. And speaking of special effects, my silver award goes to The Thing. John Carpenter's 1982 remake, which is just perfect. You know what, I strangely didn't care for it as a kid and found it as slow as hell, but as an adult I can appreciate the tension and slow build of paranoia. The special effects by Rob Bottin is just off the scale. I mean, the thing almost made it to the top. So what beat it? Well, hopefully I'm not being too predictable here, but my gold award has to go to The Shining. It has to. I mean, it just has to. It's the film I just love to watch over and over again, and each viewing is almost like an event. I just love how immersive the experience is. I love the nuances, I love the layered metaphors, I love the vacuous space of the overlook. It's like a cinematic Rubik's Cube that we all want to solve. And another shameless plug, I did a dedicated video to The Shining, and you can watch it by clicking on the screen right now. So let's move on, shall we? The 90s was the era of the birth of the internet and the mobile phone and the self-aware horror film, so let's dive in. My silver award goes to Silence of the Lambs. Is it a horror? Maybe not, but it's certainly horrific and swept the board at the 1991 Oscar ceremony. My silver award goes to Scream. Wes Craven's ingenious and sometimes hilarious fresh take on the slasher genre. It's smart and just shares its love of horror classics. My gold award, however, might be a little bit controversial, but it's a film that scared me witless when I first saw it. It was Labor Day in Palm Springs, and I went to see this at a local cinema and had to sleep in the car afterwards with the light on. It's The Blair Witch Project. A simple film that introduced us to the found footage genre, and it's still going strong. I mean, I find this film ingenious, captivating, and a breath of fresh air for its time. I watched it again not too long ago, and I still think it has that brooding power to unnerve, even though you don't really see a thing. Did you know that the actors were given less and less food every day to heighten their tension? So we have now crossed over beyond the millennium, and I remember thinking all the computers were going to crash and it was going to be the end of the world. As usual, it turned out to be nothing but hype. My bronze award goes to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a rare remake that stood up to the challenge quite well in my opinion. Now for the record, it doesn't beat the 1970s for the grime and disturbing ambiance. It looks way too glossy for that, but when this film gets going, it's gripping and quite nerve-shredding. My silver award goes to 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle's apocalyptic nightmare that presents the terrifying prospect of zombies that run after you. Now, there's something terrifying about that prospect, and what makes it even more nightmarish is that it takes place here, in the UK. So what won the gold? Well, my gold award goes to Saw, the original and best, and introduced us to James Wan. Now, as with many effective horror movies, the premise here is quite simple and ingenious and really gets to you. It's disturbing, it's graphic and totally brutal. Did you know the film was shot in just 18 days? What a result. So now we are in the 2010s and it feels a little scary just how quick time is passing me by. And with this we can see how the world of the horror movie has changed over the years. So what have I chosen for this decade? Well, my bronze award goes to another James Wan movie, and this time it is The Conjuring. Yes, the 2013 film is hardly original, but it's a well-crafted scare machine and one that I've watched a few times, so I do admire it. My silver award goes to The Witch, Robert Eggers' 2015 debut feature. It's eerie, unsettling, sober and dripping with atmosphere. Now, there isn't a shadow of doubt where my gold award goes to, and it has to be Ari Aster's Hereditary. A truly disturbing and frightening film about a broken family who become in the grip of demonic forces. There's something truly unsettling in its refusal to resort to Blumhouse-style scares. I mean, it opts for drama and realism and a dripping slow burn that really gets under your skin. It's a fine film, and for me, a strong contender with the power of The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby. And Toni Collette's performance is so good, I would have loved her to have bagged an Oscar. And finally, we are up to date, bang in the moment, in the 2020s. Well, horror is alive and present, although it feels a little in need of the next big thing, whatever that is, but we seem to be in the middle of a reboot, requel, prequel territory and lacking a little bit of originality. So the whole Blumhouse machine is now getting a bit tired. We've seen the franchises of Halloween, The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw, The Omen, all well and truly milked beyond belief. It seems the birth of AI is the current topic of discussion. Who knows, it could be something around that. But we've had Megan, which was decent, but it didn't quite make the grade for me. One film that has stood out so far, to me, is Talk to Me, a chilling Australian ghost story that updates the Ouija board parlour game. Now, did you know that the directors of Talk to Me were YouTube content creators before making this film? So they went from viral videos to viral scares. You will have noticed that I love the work of Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, and I can't wait for Nosferatu, so maybe that will make the grade, which takes us back to the very beginning of this video. The perfect bookend to end this. Do you agree with my decisions? Have I missed your favourite film? Why not tell me in the comment boxes below, and let me know what your gold, silver and bronze for each decade is. I'm all ears, but thanks for joining me on this frightful journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really supports this channel. And I will see you soon. Take care.